This couple lost $75,000 and home buying mistakes will cost you big time. In today's video, we look at crucial information about the home buying process and what you can do to avoid the big mistakes. If you find value in this video, consider hitting that like button. Last week, I caught up with a mate of mine, George, and he was telling me about his first home buying debacle. He started by saying, I had no idea what I was doing. So I went to my bank, and in my first meeting, my banker showed me how much I could borrow and told me to get a pre-approval. But I never really understood what was going on. He just threw big words at me and acronyms like LMI and LVR. I felt confused. It's not like we were taught this stuff in school. The meeting left me feeling dumb. Looking back on it now, it felt like my banker was more interested in selling me rather than educating me in the home buying process. And this is where George really needed someone to take the time to explain all the different aspects of the home buying process, from home loan features to fees involved, and even the steps to take when buying a home. Hitting that subscribe button, you'll get access to all this information and we'll be able to keep up to date with the latest in property and finance. Once I got pre-approved, it didn't take me long to find a home. When I did, I called my banker to ask what to do next. I was nervous and I didn't want to make a mistake. On the call, he said that he's not allowed to give me advice on this sort of stuff and that I should speak to a conveyancer. So I went on a search for a conveyancer, and to be honest, it was the first time I had heard I needed one. I didn't actually know what they did, feeling frustrated, thinking, why wasn't I told this up front? Fast forward around 4 weeks, successful with my bid, finance approved. Now all that was left is settlement. To get to this point was not easy, and so many things went wrong, but they're all stories for another day. Now I only had 5 days from settlement, and my banker had told me that there was nothing left to do and that the bank was ready to settle. I was hoping now I could relax. Being a first home buyer, I didn't have a great deal of savings. I thought all I needed was some money for my deposit, a few bank fees, and I already knew that stamp duty was waived. The moment I had signed the contract, I had eaten nothing but rice and tuna because I needed every cent. And this is where things went wrong for George. 3 days before settlement, his conveyance had sent him an estimated cost for his funds position. And this is a breakdown of what's needed to be paid upon settlement. Things like rates adjustments and title transfer fees are all listed on this document. I read the funds position. I had never heard half the fees that were listed. So the first thing I did was call my conveyancer in the hope that there was something wrong. My heart stopped when I found out I needed another $4,311.45. It was money I just didn't have. Immediately, I got into my banker asking if I could borrow more money. He said that there was nothing he could do as I only had the minimum deposit and was borrowing the highest amount already. Angrily, I said, why didn't you tell me about these other fees? With a smug attitude, he replied to me saying, it's not my fault and I should have saved more. I was fuming. In a minute, we'll get back to George's story. But the first question probably on your mind is, how much does it cost to buy a home in Australia? Well, there are 3 categories that you'll need to know. The first is deposit, and that's the amount the bank will want you to put down. In the majority of cases, this will be a minimum 8%, but there are exceptions and can be as low as 5% if you're a first-time buyer. So to find out how much deposit you'll need, head on over to our deposit calculator. From there, just input how much money you'd like to put towards the deposit. You can change the percentage, and if you're unsure, it's best to use an 8% at this point. From here, you can see how much you'll be able to spend on a home. If you don't have a deposit saved, know that there are other options out there to buy without one. And recently, I did a video on just this topic, and you can find a link in the description if you're looking to buy a home without a deposit. The second cost is associated, and it makes up all the expenses that are directly associated when buying your home. This includes government fees, conveyancing, and building and pest. Stamp duty will likely be the largest in this category, and to find out what this will cost you, head on over to our stamp duty calculator. The final cost is miscellaneous, and this is where most people get tripped up. In a moment, I'm going to show you a complete breakdown of every cost applicable when you're buying a home. But for now, a very rough rule of thumb is to include your deposit government fees plus a $5,000 buffer. In most cases, this is more than sufficient to cover all the costs associated. Example of fees involved when buying a home. Say you're buying a home and you live in New South Wales. Looking into the first category, we know that you'll need about a $60,000 deposit. Moving on to the second category, and by using our stamp duty calculator, we can see how much the total government fees are. Later in this video, I'm going to give you more of a price range with each category, such as building and pests, but for now, I'm using estimates, and overall, we'll need roughly $32,000 for the associated fees. Finally, miscellaneous, and it's near impossible to get any clear guidance on this. Therefore, it's best to allocate $2,000, as for the majority of cases will be more than sufficient to cover all the fees associated. So in total, to buy a home for $750,000 in New South Wales, we'll need around $94,000 to cover all costs. And by remembering these three fees, it means you'll never get caught short. Costs explained. Lender's Mortgage Insurance, or LMI, is an insurance that's mandatory for borrowers who typically have less than a 20% deposit. It covers a bank in the case that you default on your mortgage, and it doesn't offer any protection to you whatsoever. The cost of LMI in most cases can be added to your home loan, but it's a significant expense, especially for borrowers who are taking out a large loan with a small deposit. This is an example of how much mortgage insurance costs. Solicitor or conveyancer. A conveyancer is a professional who specializes in all legal aspects of buying and selling property. In Australia, conveyancers are responsible for preparing and lodging legal documents that are required to transfer the property from one person to another. They help with things like preparing contracts of sales, conducting searches to ensure the property are free from any encumbrances or liabilities, handling payment of stamp duty and other fees and charges. Conveyancers also provide advice and assistance throughout the property transaction process. Hiring a conveyancer is an absolute must and will cost between $1,000 to $1,500 for their professional services, plus any searches you choose to complete. In general, these will range from between $200 to $600 depending on the searches you elect. Building and pest inspection. A building and pest inspection is a comprehensive examination and assesses a property's condition, identifying potential problems or defects. Building inspections are typically focused on the structural integrity of a property, including such things as condition of the roof, walls, and foundation, whereas pest inspections are designed to identify infestations of pests, such as termites, that could cause damage to the property. Building and pest inspections are carried out by qualified professionals, and they will provide a detailed report on the condition of the property, including any issues which need to be addressed. Depending on the size of your home, this will cost between $500 to $1,000. Bank fees, and when you apply for a home loan, there are a number of fees that may need to be paid. This includes such fees as an application, which covers the cost of processing your home loan application, a valuation, which is charged to assess the value of your property, settlement, which covers the cost of transferring the loan funds to the seller, and mortgage registration, which is charged to register your mortgage to the relevant authorities. In addition, there may be some ongoing fees, such as an annual package fee too. In total, these costs can range from nothing to $1,500 in total, depending on the bank you're with. Government fees. Stamp duty is a tax that's levied on the purchase of a property in Australia. The amount of stamp duty that you'll need to pay will depend on a number of factors, including the value of the property, the state or territory which it's located, and in general, the higher the value of your property, the higher the stamp duty will be. In some cases, you may actually be eligible for a concession or waiver from stamp duty, depending on your circumstances. As an example, if you're a first home buyer, you might actually be eligible for a stamp duty concession or waiver. Other government fees include a title registration fee, which is charged to register the transfer of ownership of the property from the seller to the buyer, and a mortgage transfer fee, and it's a charge to register the mortgage against the title. Other fees. You may be required to pay certain fees on settlement and can include council rates, are charges levied by local governments to fund the maintenance and services provided in the area, such as roads, libraries, and parks. Water rates are charged for the supply and treatment of water, and utility connections are fees and charges connected to the property, such as electricity, gas, and other utilities. The exact cost of these fees will depend on the property and its location. Finally, the cost of hiring a removalist when buying a home can vary depending on a number of factors, including the distance you're moving, the amount of furniture and belongings you have, and the specific service you require. In general, the cost of hiring a removalist can range from a few $100s for a small move to several thousands of dollars for a large and long distance move. The conclusion of George's story. I had 3 days to come up with $4,311.45, and this is a figure I'll never forget for the rest of my life. The first thing I thought was to sell my car. So I called up 5 different secondhand car dealerships. Only one would be able to give me the money on the spot, but for a third of its market value. That car was my first true love, and there was no way I was selling it that cheap. I was too ashamed to ask my friends and family. I felt like I should have known and prepared for this better. I was so angry with my banker because if I knew I needed more money, I wouldn't have bought so quickly. In the end, I got over the line with a combination of cashing out my annual leave and cash advancing a credit card I had. When buying a home, remember that there are hidden fees, and by having a savings buffer, it'll ensure that you're prepared for the worst. Here at Hunter Galloway, we're mortgage brokers who get home loans approved. We help Australia-wide and don't charge a fee for our service, so reach out and contact us online at huntergalloway.com.au or call us on 1300 088 065. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll catch you then.